Hello everyone, RFG here with another update for BlazBlue Entropy Effect, focusing on the character ICEY and other additions for its 1-year anniversary. This was released in tandem with the Hazama DLC update, and if you're curious about how he plays, you can find a link to my coverage going over his abilities along with some of my previous updates in the video description. Keep in mind that while Hazama and Rachel are paid DLC playable prototypes, ICEY is included as part of the anniversary update with no additional costs, but she does have her own requirements before she can be used for mind training. I'm not going to go into full detail about how to unlock her prototype analyzer, but the game does a pretty good job of guiding you on how to get to the ICEY side levels. For those who aren't familiar with ICEY, it's a solid side-scrolling action platformer with a good sense of meta humor and some interesting combat mechanics, both of which were translated pretty well for Entropy Effect. Some changes were made to how her character works, but for the most part, going through her levels gradually shows how accurate she plays compared to her own game, and how well she's adapted for Entropy Effect. Her levels function mostly like a tutorial to pretty much all of ICEY's potential abilities, but it's not too explanatory and still keeps the meta charm from the narrator like the original game. I won't go over it in full detail, but it's actually pretty enjoyable to go through, and there are some secrets hidden in there, so it's also worth exploring, and it's not just filler to unlock ICEY. As for ICEY as a prototype, the levels don't explain all of her abilities in full detail. That's still mostly on the player to read what potentials do what, but it does present a lot more information than what you get from the preview video and the mind training prototype select screen. On the surface, it would look like ICEY has most of the same basic abilities as other characters. She is missing a dash attack like Hakumen and somewhat like Mai, and her air neutral attacks and Pummel skill keep her on a steady horizontal plane unlike other characters. She can gain a spin attack finisher through separate upgrades for ground and air strings. Another attack upgrade gives an up and attack button input that forms a 2-hit uppercut slash, which has separate upgrades to make it invincible and usable in the air. Her dash starts off fairly normal, but her dash upgrades give her an 8-way air double dash, and that can be increased to a 5x dash in any of the 8 directions, making her one of the most mobile characters in the game. One other dash upgrade gives her attacks a dodge offset mechanic. This means she can continue her attack string even while using dashes and her regenerate ability, which I'll explain later in between. This also applies to her air string. But what really sets her apart from the other prototypes is that she doesn't automatically recover MP, instead all of her attacks and her base Pummel skill are what's used to regain it. Her default ability to spend MP is actually her hold attack command, Overload. This can hit multiple enemies on screen, with the final hitboxes being the 2 halves of the O symbol meeting in the center. It costs 100 MP by default, but can use SP when on the ground to increase the damage and make her invincible during the attack with upgrades. Pummel is her default neutral skill and is its own 3 input string. Its aerial version can cause enemies to ground bounce in the 3rd hit, and like I mentioned before, by default, it doesn't cost MP to use, but with an upgrade you can spend 25 MP per hit to increase the damage and range or increase the distance of the first hit. Electron Flow consists of specific combo strings using attack and skill button inputs. Each string has their own uses, and most can be used on the ground and in the air. A further upgrade can add follow-ups to Skewer and Brutal Blade. The combo strings in Electron Flow don't require MP, but ICEY's Dance of Death skills do. Deadly Disc is performed with up plus skill. It costs 50 MP and looks close to the upgraded attack string closer Quadra Slash, but actually aims slightly higher with a small bit of control. Shadow Dance costs 50 MP and is used with down and the skill button. This sends a clone to a nearby enemy to attack them once they're in range. Upgrades let you switch places with the clone's end position and let it explode when it's done attacking. Since ICEY doesn't recover MP automatically, she has another ability that helps regain it. That ability is Regenerate. When enemies have taken enough damage, they'll enter an armor broken state. This leaves them vulnerable for you to use Regenerate, which teleports ICEY to an enemy to deal small area damage in order to recover MP and SP. This also makes you invincible for its duration, though the attack itself is very short. But if there are multiple enemies in armor broken state, you can change Regeneration multiple times depending on how many enemies are in this state, and this can be used pretty effectively with other attacks and skills due to how quick it is. Its upgrades are also plenty useful, as they can add HP recovery, restore more MP, and a chance to trigger armor broken state on other nearby enemies when activated. She can also enter 2 alternate stances, but you'll only have access to her integration stance by default. You can access this stance with down on the action button. Pressing the attack button in the state does Divide, a quick attack that gradually recovers MP after it hits. Pressing the skill button while in this stance does Neutralize, a quick invincible dash attack that puts you into a blocking state that will cost nothing when you're at less than 100 MP, or cost 100 MP when you're at 100 or above. Your period of invincibility is larger when you have 100 MP available for use. Either way, if you're attacked while in the invincibility period of Neutralize, you'll regain a large amount of MP. After a potential upgrade, you can press up in the interaction button to enter Resonance stance. Note that you have to have at least 25 MP stored to enter Resonance. Pressing the attack button uses Surge, which shoots a large wave of energy forward, costs 25 MP per shot, and pressing it repeatedly increases the size of each shot. Pressing the skill button while in Resonance uses Shift. This consumes all MP for a powerful strike. If there are enemies in Armored Broken state, you can use Regenerate to teleport to an enemy to unleash Shift on them. A further upgrade puts Divide into a dodge state along with Shift into an invincible state. And another one lets you enter the integration and resonance stances while in the air, which does allow you to use all related abilities in the air when possible. ICEY's universal enhancements center mostly on the shield potential she could acquire. The shield could absorb a certain amount of damage and grant super armor before wearing off for a cost of 50 MP. Upgrades can increase the shield health and has a chance to put enemies into armor break if they attack. One enhancement upgrade increases your MP recovery rate. Her hidden effects don't really have a unifying trait, but some of these effects are pretty useful, so I definitely recommend to check her potential page when trying to plan a growth route for mind training. Also, from my testing, Brutal Blade actually needs the uppercut attack upgrade before you can apply the extended attack when on the ground, and for whatever reason, you don't need the mid-air upgrade to use the uppercut slash in mid-air. Another odd note is that the invincibility for Shift doesn't seem to need the upgrade for it to be applied. Overall, ICEY not having auto-regenerating MP may sound like somewhat of a disadvantage, but her abilities are well tuned for her to earn it back for use. Her not having a triple dash is probably one of her biggest drawbacks, but it's hard to say having an 8-way double air dash isn't a decent trade-off, and if you opt for the 5x air dash upgrade, you'll find that that's just really nice to have. She has an interesting playstyle for Entropy Effect, but like I said earlier, it's sensible and well-suited translation from her own game. Her Evotype Talent is Mechanized Enemy. It's a pretty straightforward bonus damage to mechanical enemies trait that can kill low health enemies and it can activate on the mechanical bosses. It's definitely worth it to take the time to unlock her. The ICEY levels are a nice change of pace and you can reset the progress to replay them if you want. I can also see her mind training growth routes having multiple viable builds that can work for her in modes like Mind Trial. I should also mention her Legacy Evotype ability, Otherworldly Voice, which sounds more impactful than it actually is. When you use her Legacy ability, the ICEY narrator throws you a random effect. These can be pretty useful, but aren't active for too long with one that can affect you negatively. The description says the effects increase with the level, but I didn't notice any meaningful difference even after upgrading the Legacy ability multiple times. I feel like her unlockable Legacy ability, Otherworldly Blade, can be used much more effectively, and that brings me to the other additions that were part of this update. Besides the ICEY crossover balance changes and fixes, completing Mind Trial for an Evotype now lets you unlock a new legacy skill for all of that character Evotype and the option to choose between the two of them to inherit for a prototype in Mind Training. The legacy skills of prototype inheritance can be leveled up during Mind Training on the new Transcendence mode difficulty. To unlock Transcendence mode, you have to be Advanced difficulty with 100 entropy, and to enter it you simply have to go back to the difficulty selection screen and activate it from there. Just a quick note, after unlocking and activating Transcendence mode, you can scale the entropy down if you want. You don't have to keep it at 100. Just make sure it's activated by checking the top of the screen. Beating elite enemies in the first 4 stages of Mind Training and Transcendence mode gives you the option to upgrade one of the 2 legacy skills inherited by your prototype. None of the elite enemies in the alpha space allow for an upgrade of legacy skills, and that includes Susanoo and Reki. Reki is a new elite enemy added for Mind Training in the alpha space. She requires at least a 1600 Evotype rating in order to fight her. If your prototype isn't quite there, you should be able to raise her rating a bit higher depending on what rooms are available to access in the space. It is a pretty cool boss fight and she has a lot of nifty attacks, but for me it can be hard at times to see exactly what's going on. But it's a nice addition. Beating Reki lets you add another potential or upgrade to your Evotype. There's also a convenient addition of an increase in the capacity of Evotypes you can store. You now have a second full page to save up Evotypes to use in Mind Trial and Challenge modes. I think that just about covers all of the notable additions in this update. If you haven't played BlazBlue Entropy Effect in a while, now's probably a good time to jump back in. I've been pretty busy just unlocking everything I could. If you're not that familiar with BlazBlue Entropy Effect, you can check my review from last year to get my impressions, along with most of the mechanics. Just remember that there have been a number of updates since then, and it's pretty much just been improving from there. But that's it for me. Let me know what you think below. Thanks. Bye.